In this video, we're going to do a service on my Classic Mini. Alright, just give you a quick overview of the products I'm going to use. So we'll start off with the oil filter, MS F166, that's a mini spares filter. So that's like the standard screw-on one. The engine oil I'm using, I'm going to try this one. This is the first time I'm using this one. So that's a 20W50. It's made by Penrite. It's designed for classic minis. It's got a high zinc content. The other oil I've tried before is this one here. It's Valvoline. Alright, anyway, the other thing I want to change to are the spark plugs. I'm currently running the hotter plugs, which are the NGK BP6ES. So I'm going to try running the 6ES because occasionally it does do what we call dieseling, where you turn the ignition off, it still turns over for a couple of turns. So maybe changing these spark plugs, that might help. Okay, so I've got the front of the Mini elevated on these ramps. These are a bit tricky to use. I put my iPad sort of just down on the ground and then put the camera on it. That way I can see it from the driver's position. That's why I've got the blue tape on there, so I can sort of see when the wheel is in the correct spot. But those ramps give you a nice amount of clearance, and the advantage of using those rather than just lifting up the front of the car, the suspension, everything sits how it is in the normal driving position on the road. Alright, so the next thing I need to do now is lift up the back. Okay, so underneath the Mini there's a few places that you want to sort of check for oil leaks. Alright, so first of all, the pot joints, the main seals inside there, they've got a tendency to leak as well. It's possible that these ones are leaking, that's why there's a lot of oil there. The upper side as well. The other thing, this one was replaced, the gear shifter seal, that was replaced last time I got the car serviced. So that one's fine, that's not leaking too much. There's this one here, so that is the main gear selector mechanism, that's where it pivots all on that point. There's oil around there, so that could actually be leaking, but it's not a very fast leak. So there's not much we can do with that, because you need to take out the entire gearbox to sort that one out. There's a little bit of oil here. That could be coming from like seals under the timing chain cover around there somewhere. It could be coming from that, or it could actually just be from the pot joint and then it's flicking out that way. Alright, check the other side. Flywheel clutch housing, that seems alright, that's not too bad on this side. This one here, this pot joint is a bit oily again, but not too bad. The other thing you need to check as well are your rubber boots. Make sure none of them are slipped, so they're on the CV joint. The other ones are the steering joint, but it's probably easy to look at that when I'll take the wheels off the car. But they feel okay. So the joints there. Once I get the car back on the ground again, I'll go through the other points that need to be greased. There's a few grease nipples that need grease in there. But apart from that, seems not too bad under here. I can't see any other issues. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is drain the oil sump. So it's just this under here, so that needs to come out and then let it drain. I want to do that while it's still warm, just to help it flow out a lot easier. And then while it's doing that, I will take off the grills just so I can get to the oil filter a bit easier, because even when it's lifted up this high, it'd be a struggle to get the oil filter. You still can't get to it from there. You have to remove the grill. So I'm going to undo that sump and start draining. Alright, next thing I want to do, I've got a new sump plug washer to put on there. So the oil drip tray has this little handy little knob sticking there, so you can just put the filter on there to drain. While that's still dripping, I'll just get the new filter ready, and then I'll give that a wipe down, then fit the new filter. Okay, so I'm going to get these new spark plugs fitted. So the ones I'm using are a BP6ES, and I've just checked the gap on those, 0.028 of an inch, and they all seem fine. Alright, let's get those fitted. Right, one handy thing that most manufacturers of oil, they'll have a little sticker thing that you can fill in on the back of the bottle, fill it in for when your next service date is, and then peel it off and then stick it into the windscreen. Alright, we're going to start adding some grease to these grease nipples. So we're going to start at the back. These are the suspension radius arms, so they need to be re-greased. Normally you can get to it once you've removed that rubber cap. Depending on your grease gun, mine isn't that flexible, so I need to just remove this whole piece. Alright, so what we want to do now is add some grease. This is not like a brake bleeder valve where you undo it and then you apply the grease. You just leave it as is. There's a little ball bearing in the tip that actually moves in under pressure. So let's fill it up and then we'll see how we go. So keep adding grease until you start to see grease sort of coming out of here or from back around the edge here. Alright, so I've just jacked up the car to check the wheels. When you turn it, so with the handbrake off, you should feel a bit of friction on that brake. It shouldn't just freely spin on its own. The other thing, you want to check left and right movement, up and down as well, just to check if there's any issues with the bearings or the bearings are too loose. But that seems fine. Alright, so with the handbrake you need to make sure that's adjusted. There are two nuts at the top here. You can adjust these to tension the handbrake a little bit more, and you want it so it does, like I find it easier having when you pull up on the handbrake, it does about 3 clicks, and that seems to hold the car nicely. So if you do need to adjust that, use one shifter down the bottom there just to hold that piece, and adjust the nut here. So obviously you release the handbrake and do it when the handbrake's released. Okay, so with the wheel off, we want to just remove this. These screws should come out fairly easy. They shouldn't be on excessively tight, but just tight enough to make sure it doesn't come off. I'll just put some gloves on. Alright, so we want to just remove the actual drum, just to inspect everything and just see how things are sitting. Alright, so there's a lot of powder in there, bits of brake pad wound down, and you just want to check the depth of the amount of material left on those pads, but they seem fine. They haven't been replaced that long ago. What I want to use is just some parts cleaner just to clean all this down. So these rear brakes, they are pretty complicated. So they're pretty complex, and there's a lot of moving parts, and there's whole videos of people doing these, showing you how to adjust them. So I would suggest you watch them, but the purpose of this is just so I could check it and make sure everything's okay. So you may need to wipe things down with a rag, and when you reinsert the actual drum, make sure these holes for the screws line up so you get it the right way around. So let's just check the other side. Okay, so there are 3 nipples that need to be greased under here. The first one is just there on the upper arm. And then on the steering knuckle itself, there's an upper one here, and then also a lower one, which is on the bottom. It's a bit difficult to see, but it is there. While the wheel's off, I'll just inspect the brake pads. There's plenty of pad left on those because they're all new. It's only done 1,000 Ks. All the other bushings look okay, and I checked the boot earlier, that was alright too. And all the bits of rubber seem fine. Alright, let's get this wheel back on. Okay, so in the engine bay there's a few things that we need to just check, and some of these are things that you should be doing regularly anyway, but the first thing I want to do is double check the oil level again, because that got changed and I just need to make sure that there is enough oil in there. Also the coolant level, check that too. The windscreen wiper washer, I'm going to, even though that's still pretty full, I'm going to tip that out and refill it just with clean water. On the other side of the engine, we need to check the level in the brake canister and also the clutch fluid canister. You can see straight away that they are pretty full, but just be careful because looks can be deceiving. It may not actually be full, so always double check it. The other thing too is the oil level in the dash pots. These have only recently been serviced, so the oil level in those is correct. So it's a little bit above the top edge of the piston, about 5mm below the top of the tube that runs from the top of the piston. Air filters too, depending on what setup you have, These ones are reusable air filters. They can be cleaned. You can add oil to the actual sponge filter, but it just depends on the conditions the car's been driven in. I've got a fuel filter here. There's no debris or anything in the bottom of that one. Alright, so with the oil, it's just on the minimum mark, so it needs to add a little bit more just to get it to that maximum line. Okay, one other thing I like to lubricate things as well. So certain places I'll use WD-40. Some places I'll use silicone lubricant. So it just depends. Things like rubber seals, you want to use a silicone lubricant because it's not going to deteriorate them. Metal parts, obviously, you're going to use a WD-40. So in the engine bay, things like the catch to open the bonnet, that's one thing WD-40 is good for. You want to get it on the parts that slide together, don't just spray the entire thing. And don't forget to do the one up the top as well. Okay, so the dry lubricant I like to use is this one here, Goss Dry Lubricant, Solid Lubricant, and it kind of just looks like a candle. It's made of a waxy substance. All you need to do is then just, you can peel it open a little bit more if you like, but then you're just rubbing it on just like a crayon on any parts that you need lubricated. So it's very easy to use, and it doesn't make like a dripping mess like if you're using a spray lubricant on there. Then of course do the parts on the actual door itself. You can do this bit in here too if you like. Right, so depending on the type of hinges you've got, they should be lubricated too. Okay, so tyre pressure is another thing we need to sort out, and also check the wear on the tyre too, just to make sure there's no feathering. That might mean you've got some alignment issues. So on my front I like to run 28 PSI and then 26 on the rear. Just before I close up all the boot, check your battery as well. These ones are very low maintenance, and you just need to check the little circle on it. There's a little circle, you just need to look in there and see what colour it is. In this case here it's green, so the battery is good. It's also a good idea just to check, make sure there's no water pooled up inside. Check the fuel lines, make sure they're okay and there's no leaks or no significant fuel odours. Everything seems okay there. Okay, so what I want to do now is just test some of the electrics. We'll start off with the lights. Okay, so inside the car there's a few things that we can check. Probably we'll just go through them one at a time. The first one is like the ignition lights, to make sure that comes on, oil warning light, and also indicators as well. I've got lights on here to indicate the direction that we're turning. So they're all working fine. The other thing too is I'll just test the wipers too. So this uses, it's like a water pistol to spray the jet, and then this is only a single speed. That's working beautifully. The other electrics to test is the internal light, but that isn't working because I've taken the bulb out of that, so I'm not worried about that. And also just make sure the heater blower works as well. Yep. The other thing you want to check as well are your seat belts. Make sure the fittings down the bottom, everything is tight and secure as it should be. So just test how it retracts and test how it clicks in as well. And just make sure all the fittings are secure as they should be, and also the stem as well. Nothing should be loose. Alright, thanks for taking the time to watch this video on how I've done the service. Hopefully you'll find it of some use, or just for entertainment purposes. And also don't forget to responsibly dispose of your used oil. Our council actually accepts it for free to recycle. I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching my videos.